Moeez, and I welcome you all to day three of the Prepathon. We have had an amazing couple of days where we have discussed optimization, UI, UX, revenue and growth, and so much more. Today, it's all about AI. It's all about innovation. We have had some amazing activities as well. We have had some quizzes. We also have the leaderboard, which means that the top three attendees at the end of the event will be given some prizes. So don't forget to engage in the chat, ask questions throughout the event to make sure that you are there in the top three. Today, I have an amazing guest with me today. This guest needs no introduction, but as a host, I am obliged to tell you about him. If you are a WordPresser watching this event or watching this session, you absolutely should know him if you don't. So I would like to call upon the stage Mr. Chris Lema. Chris, it's so good to have you here, man. I'm so honored. I'm obliged. I'm so humbled to be speaking with you right now.
It's great to be here.
Just to tell everyone about Chris, if anyone who doesn't know, Chris is the CEO of Motivations AI. He is a business coach, so anyone who works with WordPress like me should know how good of a coach he is. He's a blogger, he's a speaker, he's a storyteller. He's all about that content. So, Chris, how do you feel about being here today?
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. And here's the thing. Everybody got so much out of the last 2 days. I mean, this has been a fantastic event, and there've been great speakers uh, that I could totally suck, and it still would have been a great conference, right? And so the bar is way down, the expectations are low because the last 2 days have been amazing, and I love it that way. I love being able to come in and say, hey, if this works, it's great, and if not, don't worry about it. There's going to be a couple more amazing speakers after me.
That's so good to hear, especially from someone like you. Before Chris starts his session, let me just tell you what we have in store for you today. So after Chris's session, we have some amazing activities planned out for you. We have closing remarks from Ryan Fishkin, so you might want to stay back and check that out as well. Chris, I will give you the stage now. It's up to you. Take it away.
Thank you. So 26 years ago, I wrote my first recommendation engine. 26 years ago, I took anything I knew about AI and rule engines and forward and backward chaining algorithms and started building something that I thought would help with e-commerce. That was 26 years ago. And 26 years later, I still find that recommendation engines, which is what we're going to spend some time talking about today, are one of the most powerful ways to bring data and intelligence to your website for the purpose of driving revenue. So that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to cover and hopefully get you to a place where you recognize what they are, how they work, and how to put them to use for your own sites. All right. So let's start in the simplest of all places, which is what is a recommendation engine, right? And if you've ever been to Amazon or Best Buy, if you've ever watched TV shows on Netflix, then you have experienced a recommendation engine, right? It's when you're looking at something and it says, hey, you might also like this. And you go, oh, I wonder if I would like that. And you take a look at it, right? That's a recommendation engine. And in order to do that well, it has to munge a whole bunch of data. I mean, it is a lot of work to put that together. But recommendation engines use past purchases, they use your browsing behavior, and they use a lot more data elements, things about your profile, answers you've given, how much time you've spent browsing an item, right? All of that can go into the data it uses to make a recommendation. So that's what a recommendation is. Obviously, what's important is to understand how powerful it can be, right? So Accenture said, hey, when you use this kind of personalization, right? When a store can actually recommend things that are unique to you, purchases can go up by up to 75%. And you go, well, who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want way more purchases? Of course you'd want that. Unfortunately, in the past, building a recommendation engine was so much work that most people were like, forget it. I'll just let whatever the e-commerce platform I'm using, I'll let it do some semblance of a recommendation. And if you have used products like WooCommerce, which I've used for years, right? If you don't go in and put little details into it, it'll just show when you're looking at one product, it'll show other items in that category. And you go, well, that's not personalization. That's not you looked at me and said, I think you should look at this, right? That's just generic, like, oh, this is also in the same category. That's not what Accenture is talking about, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with 6 reasons, right, why you should add a recommendation engine to your store. And I'm not going to read out every single one of these because I know you know how to read, but I want to highlight some of the most important reasons why you should seriously consider adding a recommendation engine. I'm guessing that not one of these 6 is something you'd like to ignore, right? If you do, right, if you increase content personalization, then people are more likely to stick around. So you go, oh, well, that's a good thing. But also, if you highlight the right product, then people are likely to buy. That's a great thing, right? Also, it brings targeted traffic, people that care about the thing you care about. I don't know if you've ever gotten an email. I mean, we have all gotten the other kind of email, right? The email that when you read the email, you're like, this is just trash, right? Within the first sentence or two, you get an email, you know it's trash, you hit delete, you're done. But sometimes you get an email that is so perfect, it is recommending something so right up your alley that you just have to click. And then you have to go and buy, right? This is, if you look at something like 80+% of the people who make purchases on Shopify on the platform, it's coming from paid traffic, meaning you were sitting there browsing Facebook or browsing Instagram and you saw something and you went, oh, that's amazing. And so you click it and you go over and you make a purchase. So targeted traffic is a huge benefit. Also, you have likely, if you're running a store, you likely have heard and experienced cart abandonment, right? Cart abandonment runs on average about 70%. So 7 out of 10 people that come to your website, put something in their cart, and then get interrupted, right? Sometimes that interruption is their own life, right? It's family members coming by. There's some dynamic. I get it, right? But other times it's our own websites. You get to the checkout, it asks for a coupon. What do people do? They start opening browser windows to go looking for coupons. You inspired that behavior. But as they're browsing coupons, they go to other sites, and then all of a sudden what happens? They're no longer buying from you. So if you can decrease the bounce rate and if you can decrease cart abandonment, that's huge, right? Increased average order value, the number of products that are put in a cart. If you can add that, drive that up, that's a huge deal. And lastly, the more time people spend on your site and the number of pages that they have, they engage in during their visit are all signals back to Google that you have a really valuable site. So of course, we would want all of these benefits, right? McKinsey did a study just recently that said 35% of Amazon purchase, 35%, and 75% of the shows that people watch on Netflix are all driven by recommendation systems. Now you can think about your own experience, right? You go to Amazon, you click on one item, then you click on another, and within a few minutes, Amazon has figured out in real time, right, how to say, you may want to look at this, you may want to look at that. And as you're doing it, you go, oh, that is a good idea. Like you click on something and now you're looking at something with a serious notion of buying. That's a recommendation system. And you can have that too, right? It's not just Amazon. It's not just Best Buy, right? So let's break down the kinds of recommendations and engines that you might experience. The first is collaborative filtering, right? Collaborative filtering, what they're doing is they're looking at a bunch of data. They're looking at your behavior, your click stream, and then they're looking at who's similar and what have they done. So imagine that you have looked and bought products 1, 2, and 3, and your friend has bought products 2, 3, and 4, right? So you have this different data set. Well, since I bought 2, 3, and 4, and they brought 1, 2, and 3, then 2 and 3 are matched. And if 2 and 3 are matched, then it means recommending for the person who bought 1, recommending number 4, and for the person who bought 4, recommending number 1, right? That's the collaborative filter. You're like, oh, you bought 1 through 3, you bought 2 through 4, right? And now we're going to find the cross connect and show you what's missing. And that's what we're going to recommend, right? And so you go, okay. Now, the beautiful thing about this is the engines for collaborative filtering, the engines don't actually have to understand what these products are, right? They're not trying to figure out this represents a shirt and this represents colors. They're not trying to build that model. They're literally looking at the data of you clicked on product 1, 2, 3, 4. They looked at products 2, 3, 4, and here's the cross connect, and here's what's and so you go, okay, that's legit. That's easy to do. There are 2 kinds of collaborative filtering. One is trying to match the people, right? Now, this takes a lot of computational effort. We have to pull in all the data, and then what we have to do is we have to say, okay, this user made these purchases, also looked at these pages, also spent time, favorited these items. We pull all this data in, then we do that for another person. And when we pull all of those together, then we start looking for places where there's overlap, and that's high incidence of similarity. And once I understand that these 2 people are really similar, then I can look at the delta between them and make recommendations from one to the other. That's user to user collaborative filtering. But there's another way to do that, right? Another way to do it is you look item to item, right? You're not looking at the person, you're looking at the items. So let's say that you bought a tent and a lantern and a flashlight, right? If tent and flashlight and lantern all go together, then we notice there's a high incidence rate between these things being connected. So when someone comes in and buys a lantern and a tent, we know how to say, oh, check out the flashlight, right? Check out the flash. Why check out the flashlight? Because everybody else who buys these 2 also buys this third. So at that point, you're not looking at users, you're looking at the products. And the moment someone puts a product in their cart, you can go, oh, do you also want this? Do you also want this? Right? This is the mistake some people make when they, and you may have even heard this advice, right? The mistake people make in e-commerce is if someone puts a toothbrush in their cart and then they abandon the cart, what do? Right? You send an email, and then eventually you send a coupon and you say, here's a coupon for 20% off of this toothbrush that you put in your cart. Now, if you were using item to item collaborative filtering, you would know that if they put in a toothbrush in their cart, they also likely need toothpaste. So don't send them a coupon for the toothbrush because they already showed their intent by putting that in the cart. Instead, send them a coupon for toothpaste. Now, not only do they remember that they wanted to buy a toothbrush, right? But they also add something to their cart, the toothpaste. So now your average order volume has gone up. Your average order value has gone up. The number of items in your cart has gone up. You still used a coupon, but you used a coupon on the second item, not the first, because you knew there was a high correlation between 2 items. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the other one, right? The other one is content filtering, right? And this requires engines to understand more about what the items are, what they represent, what they mean. They're looking at the data itself to understand and make intelligent recommendations based on the content, right? So imagine that you're using Apple TV, you maybe click on the button for the microphone and you say something like, show me Rocky, right? So the movie Rocky, a famous boxing movie, shows up on the top of the screen, but underneath it, it says, oh, these are the actors in Rocky, one of which is Sylvester Stallone. And you click on Sylvester Stallone and it says, here are all the other movies that he's in. And so you might, if you liked Rocky, you might like other Sylvester Stallone movies, but you might also like Rocky because it's a boxing movie. And so you like boxing movies, not necessarily Sylvester Stallone. So what happens is you have to create this graph of all of the different attributes for that one movie. And then you allow a system to run down the different vertices of those attributes. So you might be looking down the actor, you might be looking at the kind of movie, maybe you just like all action movies, right? And so that graph is what makes all those recommendations possible. Now, the third kind of engine is a hybrid. And the hybrid is the perfect example of that is Netflix, right? And you're like, okay, this is great because I can see what you watched and I can see what I watched. And based on those things, if we're similar, we can make recommendations, but also predicated on the actual material, right? You can also say, oh, if you liked this movie, you'll like this other movie. Now, I want to give you one tiny little tip. And this is a screenshot of Netflix just a few days ago, right? And if you take a look at this, you're going to notice something. In the bottom row, it says new releases. That means this is something that just showed up on the network, right? It just appeared. But then if you look at the top row, it says popular on Netflix. And you'll see that the number 2 in popular is also the number 2 in new releases. Now, honestly, how is that even possible, right? With the millions and millions of people watching Netflix, how does something that's brand new, that wasn't there yesterday and is there today, how does it make it to the top list of what's popular? And the answer is they just put it there, right? I mean, you have to, for a second, back up and think, okay, yes, it's very powerful to use data and AI and algorithms and all these systems like recommendation engines. It's great to use this to make recommendations to people they like. But Netflix owns Netflix. Macy's owns Macy's. Best Buy owns Best Buy. Nike owns Nike. And if Nike wants you to buy something, it will take its premier featured product and it'll stick it in its own dedicated list, like most popular, and then people will buy something they think is popular. In this scenario, people will watch something because it got elevated. I'm not saying you have to do this, but I am saying it is a pretty powerful way, right, to skip past all the rest of this recommendation stuff and just go, hey, I'm going to create a trending now menu item in my top nav of my e-commerce store right before Christmas and right before Black Friday. I'm going to put a trending now or popular or another tab for just sales, and I'm going to seed it with the information I want you to look at. And then people will do this. I don't know if you've ever, in my introduction, they mentioned that I know WordPress a little bit. And I don't know if you ever looked at those little sidebar widgets that said, this is the most popular article on my website. I thought those were done by recommendation engines. I thought legitimately it's like, oh, the system's calculating who watched what and then showed it to you. And then I talked to a buddy who's like, no, I just put the links of articles I want them to read. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. That's another way to do it, right? So just be aware that as much as we're talking about recommendation engines, the reality is you can also just create your own shortcut lists and point people there. And that's what Netflix does as well, right? That's how it drives the viewing it needs to. So what's happening behind the scenes, right? Well, what we're doing is we are aggregating data. We are collecting a massive amount of data. We look at not only what's the category that the product was in, but we look at the product in that category. And we look at how often a product in a category is rising to the surface. That's some data. We look at which products are getting added to cart, even if they're not bought. If they're getting added to cart, that's a signal of intent. We look at what has been purchased. Purchase data is another piece. We're looking at what you search for, right? When you type in a search, you're telling us what you're looking for. All of that data we suck in to process. And we're literally looking both from a person to person, but also from a product to product. We're looking at what are the correlations there. That's a big deal. Then we also look at user specific data, right? This is the data that is like, you might say, I wear a 1XL size shirt. Well, if that data is there inside of your profile, then when you go to Macy's and you show me a list of the popular shirts, they're going to shrink the list to those which are in your size. Because what's the point of showing you something that doesn't fit you, that when you go to click in and you go to 1XL and it says, sorry, it's not available, that leaves you frustrated. So we look at user specific data, like things you put in your profile, but also what are some of the things you've spent time looking at, right? And that's your click stream, and we connect it to you. And then there's just regular product data, right? Price, availability, brand, also, what category it's in, and, ratings for the product, right? All this stuff goes into the product data. We take all of that and then we use that to figure out how to present in different contexts, different kinds of data. If there's a new user showing up to your website, I don't have user data, right? And so I may just want to quickly show them, hey, these are the best-selling items. These are our new offerings, and these are things for sale. And by the way, if you're running a store and you're going, I'm not sure I'm ready to spin up a recommendation engine, you can go create those filters on your website today. You define what's best-selling, right? You define what's considered new, and you define which items you're going to put on sale. You can create these 3 sets of products, and you can create pages for them, right? You create 3 pages and you put them in your top nav. Best-selling, new offerings, items for sale. You can name it anything you want. And you will start driving traffic directly there. Now, if you have time to implement a recommendation engine, then of course you'd want to be able to do things like number 2 and number 3, which is, hey, here's what you've looked at recently, and here are some other products that are similar to that. You were looking at a tent. Here's a tent. Here's another tent. Here's a bigger tent, etc. Right? Recent purchases. If someone comes back and they've bought before, then here's something that goes with what you bought already. I don't necessarily want to do an upsell at that moment because you already spent money on the shoes you like. I don't want to say these are a better pair of shoes, right? I just want to show you, hey, you bought the shoes, you didn't buy extra shoelaces. And these are elastic laces and these are cool and you might want these. Oh, yeah, sure. Now, where could you put all this? By all means, you could change the homepage, right? If you go right now to Macy's and you go to the homepage and then you click men's and then you go pick jackets and then you go browse 2 or 3 jackets and you go back to the homepage looks the same. But there are other stores where you go and it shows, we just finished summer. So there would have been beach chairs and towels and swimsuits. But if I click men's and then I click jackets and then I browse a couple of jackets, when I go back to the homepage, it's showing me jackets. It's showing me all men in the whole thing because it's looking at my click stream. So you can definitely change the homepage based on recommendations, but you can also do it in the shopping cart. Someone puts something in the cart, show them bundles, show them some cross sells. You can do it on the product page where you go, oh, I know you're looking at, if you recently went through the Apple launch and you were like, oh, I'm looking at the new iPhone. And then it says, oh, but you're only looking at the Pro, not the Pro Max. Are you sure you wouldn't like the Pro Max, right? That's the upsell. You want a case? That's the cross sell. Do you want a case and, a MagSafe charger, nightstand charger, right? That's a bundle. So you can put it in the product pages around all that. You can also do it in faceted search, in what's popular or trending. And then one of the cool ones is when you show a person who's, they're laying in their bed and they got the nightstand, they got the phone next to it, and the ad is for the phone, right? You're on the phone page, but then it says, do you want to complete this look? And now I show you, here's what's also in the photo that you might have missed, right? So here's a nightstand and a charger and what have you. And you go, oh yeah, that's good. So these are all places where you can see it. All right. What happens when you put it to work, right? When you say yes to recommendation engines? Well, Jensen USA saw an 8.5% increase in revenue per visitor. More money per person visiting the website. Of course you want that, right? Level 9 Sports, 23% increase in their conversion. You recommend better products, you're going to get better closing. Annie Selk saw 34% increase, right? And part of what she was doing is she's collecting the data. The website's collecting the data and saying, oh, based on what they're searching for, based on what they're looking for, right? Let's start introducing some new offerings, right? And so if you are selling something and you're selling it, you remember the Henry Ford and the Model T, it was like, you can pick any color as long as it's black when the first cars were coming out. Well, sometimes we do that with our products, right? We go, oh, it's this product and it comes in black, and you don't realize I wanted it in purple. And so just by adding a slight variation in one attribute, like changing colors, means you're going to get an increase, especially if people are searching for, they're telling you, right? They're using collaborative filtering. They're doing things to show you what they want. And you go, okay, well, let's give them what they want, right? Luisa Villaroma put a change on the actual cart to drive upsells in the cart, and then also put recommendations on the thank you page, and saw 15% and 14% increase in average revenue per user. That's ARPU, right? They didn't just do it while you were shopping. They did it after you finished shopping. And if you think, well, that's crazy, after I finished purchasing, why would I ever purchase again? Amazon ran more than 250 tests on the actual post-purchase thank you page, 250 different tests. I don't mean they did one test 250 different ways. I mean, they literally did 250 different tests on that page. The language, right? When it says, hey, share your purchase with your friends on social, and they give you a little text box and you click a button that shares it on Twitter or X or Facebook, whatever. They had 5 different versions of that language, right? Do you want to share this with your friends? Sounded more like a command, right? And they had all these other tests. So the chief scientist for Amazon walked through at one point all these different tests they were doing on that thank you page. And you're sitting here going, but the person's done. No, the person finished buying whatever they thought they were buying. Then they get to the thank you page and they see other things. And they go, oh my gosh, I need that, or I want that. And we take them right back into the next purchase. And that's what Luisa Villaroma did too. Okay. So, I could spend another hour talking about all this, but the point of this for you is for you to take action. So let's talk about what your options are. Okay. One option is Luigi's Box, and it is predominantly connected to your search, right? And doing product discovery. So if you have a big catalog and you want to narrow down the options and you want to use the best intelligence to make that recommendation, Luigi's Box is a service that you could do. It starts at 79 euros per month, which is $84 USD per month. I think it also may have a free plan, but the real product that they have there goes for $84 USD. And you go, okay, that's not bad, right? Then you get to AWS and all of the AWS offerings. And of course, in there, in machine learning, they have Amazon Personalize. And Amazon Personalize starts near zero. I mean, it starts so close to zero that you just call it zero. You have to bring in a ridiculous amount of data, right? You have to ingest. Remember, we talked about step one. Step one is all about ingesting data. You have to bring in a massive amount of data to start getting charged. And for the first, 4,000 recommendations in the first hour, you're paying, half of a penny. So you go, okay, this is very, very inexpensive. But notice the asterisk, right? And you go, okay, hold on a second. Why did Chris put an asterisk next to nearly zero? Because while you won't spend a lot of money licensing the engine, you will spend a ridiculous amount of money staffing up people to make this all work. You have to spend time training engines. You have to spend time integrating and configuring that. And you have to spend time with the recommendations. And you will spend a lot more money than $79 a month, a lot more money than $99 a month. So yes, the engine is free. Like most things at AWS, it's darn near close to zero, which is amazing. But you have to fully invest. So if you have a data scientist on the team, a software developer who's eager to learn this stuff, then Amazon Personalize can be really powerful. But that's not my recommendation. My recommendation to you is that you check out a company called Recombi. I do not work for them. I am not in an affiliate relationship with them. I literally have nothing to gain except to tell you that this is my all-time favorite, because this is the AI engine for recommendations as a service. You can integrate it to your Shopify, WooCommerce, or any kind of store, big commerce store that you have. You can integrate it with the store. It will pull the data out. It will make and figure out all those data points and vertices, all those connections, all the ways to look at both user-to-user content filtering and product to product, right? It'll look at it from both angles, and then it will give you the tools to put that into your website. So it is without question my favorite recommendation engine, and recommendation engine as a service. But what I also recognize is that some of you aren't yet ready to implement a full recommendation engine right away, right? You don't yet know what you don't know. And so you're sitting there going, well, maybe I could, but who knows if this is going to work? And what if it's, excuse me, what if it's recommending the wrong stuff, right? So let's start with an earlier and simpler step. Now, Glue, GLEW.io, is not a recommendation engine, though it does help you with recommendations. But at the core of what it is a massive data warehouse, right? When we think about recommendations and recommendation engines, what we're really talking about is managing, storing, analyzing data. So a company that is doing that for good, right, is already a first step towards that end. And anytime you know more about your store, you're going to be better off. Well, what Glue does is Glue automatically, right? And it starts at $99 a month. But what Glue, and I think they even have a free plan for a little something, but the real package starts at $99 a month. You connect your WooCommerce, Shopify, BigCommerce, any kind of store you have, you connect it to Glue, and then Glue starts pulling the data out, and it first does customer segmentation. That's what you see here, 23 different segments of your customer base, right? Who are the people that spend the most amount per item? Who are the people that spend the most total per lifetime? Who are the people that make big purchases and then have a long span between them? Who are the people who come back regularly and make little purchases but make a lot of them? Who are the people that only buy with coupons? Who are the people who have never used a coupon, right? That's an amazing amount of data that they segment for you automatically. But they don't stop there. They also do all the product to product analysis. So if you want to know something about your system, right? You want to understand something about your store and you connect it up to Glue. If you're not fully ready to do a recommendation engine, then of course you'd want to know which are your most profitable products. That's the top row. But you also would like to know, what are your hot products? And you go, wait, what's a hot product? Those are products that are selling faster than your other products, which means they're looking at all of your products, when they're being sold, how often they're being sold, and then they're getting an average for your store. The average is, this thing is a single item is bought 2 times or 3 times in a month, but this one has been bought 80 times in a month. And the delta between 3 and 80 is so big that now we're going to call this a hot product, right? Also, what are the top product bundles, right? That's the last row you see there. And when you see that row, you realize, oh, I understand why Chris is recommending that we take a look at Glue. Because even if we're not ready to fully implement a recommendation engine, if we put Glue against our data set and it sliced and diced all of our data, we could go manually into key products and create bundles right then and there in our e-commerce system. Even though it's not a custom recommendation, it's a recommendation based on the product. And that would make me more money right away. And you go, absolutely, that's exactly right. What else can Glue do, right? It can look at, now I've blurred out a bunch of data so that you don't see someone's personal information, but you see they made multiple purchases. What I want you to look at is this little section over on the right that says customer status, right? When you look at customer status on the right side, you'll see that the customer is marked as active. Why? Because they've made a purchase in the last amount of days. And there's a special term they use for that, which is called the lapse point. And what they understand about the lapse point is that, hey, for your specific store, when we pull all the data of all the people that made more than one purchase, so there were repeat purchases, what we did is we said, what's the average delta, the distance between the repeat purchases? And every store has their own lapse point. And what they figure out is that your store's lapse point is 79 days. So now this person's active because they made a purchase in the 79-day window. Now, when they get close to that 79-day window, they're going to move past the lapse point, which means now you have to go get them back, get them to buy something else. And then this tells you, right, these are some suggested products for this person given what they bought. So it's making the recommendation. It's just not automating into your platform. But now you can use this for your email campaigns. So if you see someone getting close, you grab some of this data, put it in an email, send it to them and say, I recommend this. And again, you will see people buying. So even if you're not ready to fully implement a recommendation system, right, it doesn't mean that you can't get started right away. And that's why I tell you, right, this, which is the more you know about your customers and your products, the better you make suggestions. And if you make good suggestions, you will drive greater revenue to your store. So that's my time. My name is Chris Lema. You can find me on Twitter or X at Chris Lema. I'm the CEO of a company called Motivations AI, and I have a blog over at chrislema.com. Thank you very much.
Well, that was extremely insightful, Chris. I'm sure a lot of people over here who owns an e-commerce store would have gotten a lot of insightful information on how to use AI. Before we move on to Q&A, let's have a quick look at the chat. I saw some interesting conversations building up. Salim here appreciates the hat. I'm sure, Chris, you get that a lot. There was one question in the chat. The user was asking if they have to recreate the entire website to implement the engines that you have recommended. So is that so, or can it be done with the existing site design?
I'm not sure I'm getting the full notion of the question. Do you know where it is so I can look at it?
Yeah, I have pinned it on the stage.
Yep. Okay. So how long to recreate? But which website are we talking about? Do you mean just any website?
Yeah, it was just this one liner.
Yeah.
No other
Okay.
explanation.
All right. So
Yeah.
so let's tackle it. If you're using something like Recombi and you want to add it to your website, depending on the skills of your team, right? I think you would be able to pull it off in a week or two. It's not a lot of work to implement.
Okay.
If you are not using Recombi, also Luigi's Box, if you want to implement that to your search, again, not a lot of work. But if you want to train up your own engine with your own custom recommendations and you want to use AWS's personalized, that could take months. If you want to implement Glue and just get some of the data out so that you can go into your products and start making recommendations, then again, days to weeks.
Okay, moving on to the Q&A section. I think we have some interesting questions over here. So I'm going to pin this question on screen. This is from Safana DA. Should a WordPress website use plugin for product recommendations or AI? a plugin safe, or is it like a recommended method to use AI?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Anything that is using AI, anything at all, is going to be processing a lot of data. So if you're using a plugin on your own website to process all that data, you're going to use your CPU of your web server to be doing that work. And if it's doing that work, it cannot spend that energy checking people out. So I have always recommended, right? And I created the managed WooCommerce offering over at Liquid Web years ago. I worked with some of the biggest multi-million-dollar stores on WooCommerce over years. And what I would tell you is my recommendation is that you keep as much off the server as possible. So all of my email marketing is on another SaaS. All of my recommendation engine is another SaaS. All of my abandoned cart email follow-up is on another SaaS. I want that engine on that store to just do what it needs to do for checkout. That's what keeps it running fast. If I make it do reporting, which is what Glue does, if I make my website do reporting, then my website is slower because of my internal look. I'd rather push that off to a SaaS.
Perfect. We have another question. I think it's on AI and SEO. I know that it's another debate altogether, but can you briefly just describe how AI and SEO can work together for e-commerce or WooCommerce websites?
And I think, don't you have Rand wrapping up the day? Right?
We do.
Yeah. So first I will tell you that whatever I answer, Rand is going to answer this so much better at the end of the day, right? So like
Absolutely.
understand I'm here and Rand is here, and so like my answer does not compare. But here's what I'll tell you. What we're seeing with Google, and this is my interpretation, and I'm not a Google expert. Again, there are many other people that are far more qualified than I. But what we're seeing is that Google is saying, hey, I want helpful, I want valuable, I want all, for SEO, I want good content, I want valuable content, I want helpful content, but also I want unique content. And the challenge, right, is that what we do, and most of the tools that we do, is that we turn around and we read, these are what people want to know about. And we write on our own website a copy. I mean, I'm not saying we actually copied it, but we're writing a version of the same article that 20 other people have written the same article on. And Google's like, what do I care about all this, right? You guys are all basically saying the same thing. So if I go to an AI engine and I ask it to write me an article, right, it's pulling from a whole bunch of stuff that's out there and things it understands, things it's been trained on, and it's going to give me the middle route of what it is. I wouldn't publish that. Now, here's what I would do. If I wanted to use AI and SEO on a store, what I would do is I would ask AI to give me its article, and then I would write my own refuting that article. Right? I'd be like, here's what common wisdom says. And then I would take a contrarian role and I would say, that's what most people tell you. Let me give you the 10% that's different than what the 80 or 90% will tell you. And that article could actually be unique and interesting and could potentially bring traffic to your site. So I would tell you that I wouldn't use AI on the SEO for articles, but would I use the SEO? Would I use the AI on SEO for my store? Like for all my product images, to create alt descriptions of every image, or to create a tag hierarchy for my product line? Sure, I would. That would be fantastic. So I think there's some places where it makes sense to use it and others where I wouldn't go near it.
Perfect. I think with that, we're gonna conclude the session. Everyone watching the session, use the reaction button to show Chris some love, to appreciate his time and his effort into for being here and to present his presentation. Chris, I'm sure our team who has worked so hard to make this event happen would want to know your feedback on the event. You being as a guest speaker, do you have any words to say for us?
Well, I love it. I will only tell you this. If we're talking about preparing, I love that you're helping people prepare in October, because most people don't prepare until November and it's too late. But I would tell you next year, let's do this event in August. Because the reality is, some of you, and not all of you, some of you are very, very prepared in advance. But there's a lot of other people. We know them. They're not you, but they're other people. And they do not prepare until the last minute. And some of these items take some time to really work through, right? And so the
Yeah.
more time you spend preparing, I think the better off you'll be. We worked with a store once to prepare for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We started in June. We worked all the way through till November, and when we did the day, right, we did $1.6 million of revenue in a single day, where the average product item cost $6, right? So we weren't selling sofas, right, for $1,000, but that was months and months of preparation. And so my only feedback to Prepathon, right, is we may want to pull it a little earlier in the calendar year, but it's fantastic. I love what I've seen. I can't wait for the videos of the stuff I missed, and keep doing a great job, guys.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was amazing feedback, especially coming from you. I'm sure we're gonna, put a lot of work next time to making sure that happens earlier. To everyone who is watching the session, I would like to tell you that after this session, there is a special activity that is being hosted by Brent Weaver. It's the AI Evolution Challenge Quiz, which is a quiz, obviously, and if you participate, you can win exciting prizes. The winner will be announced by the end of the day. And if you have participated in any of the earlier quizzes we have had over the last 2 days, those winners will also be announced at the end of the day. So stick around for that as well. Um, I'm sharing a QR code on the screen, which basically is a feedback form for you to fill out if you want to give any feedback for this session or any of the other sessions that you have attended in the Prepathon or for the overall event in general. Please use the QR code, provide us with the video with your valuable feedback. And with that, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for everyone who tuned in today to watch Chris, and stick around for more activities and session. Thank you.